Hello guys, here we are again for our today's topic. This video is geared to discuss some techniques about technical writing. Okay, so let's start. Now, in technical writing, there are some basic techniques that we can follow, among of which are mechanism technique, process description, classification, partition, and definition. For the purpose of this class for today, I would only be discussing or giving you examples, the first two. For the third, fourth, and the fifth, I would be asking you to do it as your seat work. Okay? So, let's try the first one. What is a mechanism description? A mechanism description is a type of technical writing that is focused on these information. Now, on the left side of the screen, we have there things to write or to take note about mechanism description. Now, if you're going to write about mechanism description, here are the things that you should be writing about. The first one is, what is it all about? Second, what is its function? Third, what does it look like? Fourth, how does it look like? And then the last one is, what are its principal parts? Now, in this kind of technical writing, I have here an example, which is all about talking about a printer. Now, on the screen right now, we have there a printer. Now, here is an example I have written about mechanism description. Notice that on this example, we first talk about what is being discussed. So, a printer. So, let me just take note here. Here, a printer is a device. So, it is going to answer what is it. Second, we have there that is used to produce written documents from a computer. It answers what is its function. Now, take a look on this. What is it all about? And this time, what is its function? That is used to produce written documents from a computer. Okay, what does it look like? We have here, it normally is rectangular in shape with varied colors. Printers sometimes are attached to a computer through a cable, but newer versions can be attached through wireless connection, such as Bluetooth. Okay, how does it work? We have here, most printers come with additional functions, such as scanning and photocopying. What are its principal parts? We have here now, these small devices come with multicolored buttons that can function as power, photocopy, and scan. Okay, so this is an example of mechanism description. Okay, of course, you may be able to write some kind of a description of your own, and you can also make use of different ways of doing a mechanism description. But I do suggest that you should follow some kind of a technique. Okay? Now, let's move on to the next one, which is the process description. This is also a type of technical writing. Now, what should we have in mind if we do process description? The first one is, what is it? Number two, we have, what is its function? Number 3, when and where does it take place? Number 4, who or what performs it? Number 5, how does it work? Number 6, what are its principal steps? Okay, here is an example of description. Of course, there are times, guys, that in following steps or in writing technical output, you don't have to follow each of this um, guide. Okay, but you can just simply make use of what is really applicable in what you're doing. It is what we call your own description, your own idea of what you're going to do. Okay, so let's try reading the example about process description. This time, I want us to talk about condensation. What is condensation? So the description written here about condensation is as follows. Condensation is the process through which the physical state of matter changes from gaseous phase into the liquid phase. It normally occurs when water vapor in the air changes into liquid or water. When too much vapor are contained in the air, water vapor comes down on a liquid form known as precipitation or rain. Okay, so as you can see, this paragraph or this group of sentences are leaning to process description. So this is an example. I want you to just check out which among of the statements here answer this one, the next question, and the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. Okay, so I'll leave the checking to you for your own personal learning. Okay, so this time, since I have given you examples of technical writing, the different kinds of description, then we can do an exercise. I will leave you with this exercise. The first exercise that you're going to do is to classify. Classification is another type of technical writing, or it's simply one of the skill that we can use in technical writing. Now, how to do it? First, you can just simply group things into something. You have to group them depending on what kind of groupings you're going to use. Second, you can also classify them by dividing them into. Okay, so I have here examples of or pictures of dogs. So you can classify them according to your own categories. Okay, so you can write your own description or your own category in your notes. Okay, so perhaps you can do some kind of an exercise and you can submit it to your teacher for checking. Okay, another exercise that you can do is definition. When we say definition, here are the things that you should take note when you're trying to define. First, you need to know what's its genus. You also need to know what group it belongs to. And of course, what specific details that is distinct to this particular type of object or person or something. Okay, in order to define what is an extinguisher, fire extinguisher, you can follow these things. Okay, you can follow these guides. Okay, that should be your second writing exercise. Okay, let's move on to the next exercise, which is simple grammar rules. This time around, we are going to learn about grammar rules. Okay? Now, for grammar rules, I want us to learn first what will be the first one. Okay, here, let me see. The first one is agreement between pronouns and antecedents. Now, always make sure that pronouns agree with the antecedents. Just like nouns, pronouns can dictate the plurality of the verbs. We already know that verbs can dictate or can determine the number of your nouns. Similarly, it can also determine the number of your pronouns and vice versa. Okay, so here we also have here important information. A pronoun has to agree with gender and number of antecedents. Let's take a look on the example. We have here anyone can pick their application. So anyone, as we all know here, is referring to a, um, a singular type of pronoun. Therefore, it is not suitable for you to use there as your pronoun, because anyone as an antecedent is most probably, or it's really is, a singular type of pronoun. So therefore, here you should also use a singular type of pronoun. So this one is the corrected statement. Anyone can pick his application, or you can also use her. So what is the point here? You need to make your gender and number of antecedents similar or parallel to its pronouns. Okay? Now, we also have the next grammar rule in technical writing, which is faulty or vague pronoun reference. Pronouns must refer to specific noun. Refrain from using too many pronouns as it may lead to confusion. Now we have here two examples. The first example here is full of pronouns. And of course, the second one is an attempt to correct the first paragraph. So we need to take a look on these statements or these paragraphs so that we will see the difference. Look at this. Let me read it for you. Although Bob had been hired over 2 years ago, he found out that his boss did not approve his raise. In fact, he was also passed over promotion. He concluded that he did not exhibit zeal in his endeavors. Okay, so from this paragraph, I want you to take note on the excessive use of pronouns. If you notice, he, his, he, his can be very confusing. We do not know whether these pronouns are referring to either Bob or his boss, right? So it can be very confusing. Now, let's try looking at the revised paragraph. Now, let's read. Let me just erase this one for you. Okay, let's read here. Although Bob had been hired over 2 years, he found out that his boss did not approve his raise. In fact, his boss passed over Bob's promotion. The former concluded. Former can mean who? Is it Bob or his boss? So when we say former, it means the previous person or the previous thing that has been mentioned. So this refers to boss, right? Okay, now we can also continue. The farmer concluded that Bob did not exhibit zeal in his endeavors. So his this time refers to Bob, right? Is that correct? So this time around, in this second paragraph, we are trying to make corrections on the different kinds of or the different use of pronouns. Okay. So what is my point here? I just want you to realize that excessive use of pronouns can sometimes be very faulty when writing because it can create confusion. Pronouns can be handy in short sentences, but it can create confusions to readers for long paragraphs. Too much usage of pronouns can also be a problem. Use pronouns and nouns referent alternately to ensure quality or clarity. Okay? So let's move on to the next one. We have here number 3, which is agreement between subjects and verbs. Now, verbs can determine the plurality of the subject I mentioned earlier. So sometimes writers create disagreement between these two things, the subject and the verbs. Always try to identify the main subject and determine it with the number. Find the main verb and use the verb depending on the plurality of the subject. Let's have here the example. We have here we need to take note of this. The team thinks. Okay, sometimes we are confused whether this team is singular or plural. But in case that team is taken as a singular form, then we can have this one, thinks. Okay, but guys, we should always be careful when it comes to determining the plurality of the subject. There are collective nouns which can stand as singular, and there are also collective nouns which can also be used as plural. Okay, so the only thing that I want you to know or to remember or to have a refresher is that there is always importance in the agreement of between subject and verbs. Okay, let's have fragments. What are fragments? They are uh, independent clauses used incorrectly. Okay, when group of words are used incorrectly as independent clause, then we call it fragments. Let's try looking at this one. The first statement here, working with computers. Of course, we have here a verb, we have here a noun. So some people may think that this is already a statement. But when we evaluate it, we cannot have a complete thought. Now, how are we going to correct it? It's just easy. You can just either add a subject, add a predicate, or add both subject and predicate, or you can also add independent clause to a dependent clause. Okay, so let's try with this. We have here working with computers. So working with computers, is it an independent clause or a dependent clause? Naturally, it's going to be a dependent clause. It doesn't stand alone. So we can add a predicate, proves. And then we can also add some other description. Okay, so it simply is going to be one of the steps. Okay, so we have here another fused sentence. When we say fused sentence, it means that you are combining two or more independent clauses without proper punctuation. Now, let's try looking at this one here. The company performed well last quarter. Its stock rose rapidly. Now, how are we going to correct this one? It's just very easy, guys. First, we can use a period. Just simply place a period after the first independent clause. Then, another period, of course, for the second independent clause. Next, if you do not want to do it, we need to use coordinating conjunction after a comma. So what will happen is the company performed well last quarter, comma, coordinating conjunction, so its stocks rose rapidly. Okay, next, let's erase this one first for you not to get confused. Okay, we have number 3. The company performed well last quarter. Punctuation, we use this punctuation here. Semicolon. A semicolon can be used to separate two independent clauses. So you can use it as well as a means of correcting fused sentences. Okay, we have another way. We can use this one. We can use subordinating conjunction to create a dependent clause. Okay, so because the company performed well last summer, it becomes dependent clause, right? Because you added here a conjunction, which is because. You can also use what other kinds of conjunction you can use here. Of course, it should be parallel to um, because it's going to be it's not going to have a a parallel meaning, or it shouldn't be correct if you will be if this one is not relating to because. Okay, we have um, here, and then you can also have a comma here to separate the dependent clause to the independent clause, because you added the conjunction because here, that makes it dependent clause. Okay, and then this one turns to be or remains to be a independent clause. Okay, so